Hello everyone. Today we'll be looking into the global storage setup for next generation data plane. So before we get started, I'll explain you about the significance of global storage. So global storage is required for storing data or results in a variety of file formats across multiple use cases. So in Acceldata, we have the concept of control plane and data plane, where the control plane is managed by Acceldata in AWS, and the data plane resides within the customer's VPC. And essentially, this data plane can reside in any of the cloud environments like Google Cloud, AWS, or Azure. So when it comes to these three cloud environments, typically the global storage resides closer to where we configure the data plane. So for instance, if we configure the data plane in Google Cloud, then the global storage will be configured in GCS bucket. Whereas if we configure the data plane in Azure, then the global storage will be configured closer to it, whereas it is the ADLS Data Lake Gen 2 or Gen 1 data storage. And when it comes to um, AWS, the global storage will be configured in the S3 bucket. Apart from that, the global storage can be configured in local to the pod or Hadoop file systems. So let's get started. So for today's session, I'll be showing you how a global storage can be configured for Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage using service principal and using the secret key. So these are the two methods that we'll be discussing today. So let's get started. So typically, before we start the global storage, this is the JSON payload that has to be modified in order to complete the configuration. So once the data plane installation is complete, we'll have to get the secrets global storage from the secret manager and modify it according to our underlying data source. In our case, today we'll be looking into the configuration of global storage in ADLS. So we'll have to update certain parameters like measure result fs ADLS generation. So if it is Gen 1 or Gen 2, and the storage account name which we'll be using, and the container name, and if we go with the access key, then we'll have to update the access key. And on the top, this is also really important, right? So the measure result fs type, it has to be either updated to S3 or GCS or ADLS according to the underlying data source that we are going to use. And in continuation, so if we don't use access key, then we can also go with the service principal. So if we have a service principal configured on top of our Gen 2 data source, then we can have it configured using these parameters as well. So moving on to the configuration. Um, so as explained already, the first step that we have to change is the measure result fs type. It has to be ADLS. Since our focus is on ADLS, I'll be walking you through all of these steps. And the second step is going to be the measure result fs ADLS storage container name. So the name of the container, then the storage account name, ADLS storage account name. And the third step is the mode that we are going to use. So if we, these are the three modes that are available: manage identity, service principal, and storage key. So manage identity can be used without the need of the any service principal keys or storage keys. So whenever the data plane is being configured, we can directly annotate the pods, and in those cases we can go with the manage identity. So this is like secure way of accessing the ADLS bucket storage buckets. In other cases, we can go with service principal or a storage key. So let's first look at the service principal configuration. So the mode has to be service principal. In case we are going to use the service principal route, and and below you will have to be providing the client ID, client secret, and tenant ID. So these are really important when it comes to the ADLS configuration, storage configuration using the service principal. And for storage key mode, it's simple, just a storage key and the access key that you have to copy it from your Azure environment, and your configuration will be done. And for the third one, which we are not going to look into today, it's managed identity. So if you have annotated your pods with the proper permissions, then you can use the managed identity. So let's get started. So before we get started, right, I'll quickly show you the data plane that I'll be using to showcase the ADLS Gen 2 configuration with the use of service principal. So let me click on the data plane. I'll click on application config. So this data plane is already configured, but it does not have any global storage setup already. So we'll do it during today's session. And here, in order to verify if we have the global storage setup, you can quickly look into this variable. So it says local. That means no global storage has been set up yet. So let's move on to that. I'll go back. I'll click on configure. So this is my data plane name. This is my data namespace name. So I'll be using K9s to do this activity, which is a tool um, which can be used by the beginners. So let me go into my namespace Azure DP temp ns. So here I'll be able to see all my pods. So all of my pods are currently up and running. Now in order to change the secrets, I'll go to secrets. Here we'll have to edit the global storage. So in order to edit it, we'll have to get the base 64 encoded value. So I'll click on edit, and it opens me the base 64 encoded value. So we'll have to copy this. I'll just copy this value, and I'll go to the Visual Studio Code. Since this is the base 64 encoded value, we'll have to decode it first. I'll just decode it. So once we decode it, we'll get this JSON payload, which we'll be modifying. So I'll take you to the document page. So the first step is the result fs type. We'll have to update it from local to ADLS, and the next step is going to be storage container name. So let's quickly go back to our Azure environment, storage accounts, storage browser, blob container. So we'll use this bucket, AD storage bucket SP, for today's session. So let me copy this bucket name. So I'll just put it in the container name and the account name. So my account name is ADSNS storage. I'll put that over here, and the measure result FS-ADLS generation, it's going to be Gen 2. So we have changed the FS result type to ADLS. We have added the container name, account name, and we are going to do this, use the service principal route. So I'll just copy this service principal and FS ADLS mode. So here I'll be changing it to service principal. And now we have to update the client ID, client secret, and ADLS tenant ID. So in order to do that, I'll copy the client ID, client ID. I'm going to update the client secret value now. So I have encoded this value. Again, I've changed all those parameters. I've encoded. I just copy this value, go back to my um, configuration. So I'll have to replace under this data global storage.json. Do a shift D. I'll do shift D. Now insert. I'll paste the copied value. Now I'll just save this file. The global storage configuration has been saved. I have updated it using the service principal. I'll go back to the pods. In order to perform this activity, we'll have to restart. Once the global storage file has been updated, we'll have to restart the analysis service, SQL service, and standard service. So let's just delete this pod so that it gets restarted. I'm deleting standalone, and I'll delete the SQL. This will take a while for the pods to come up. So analysis service pod is up. Let's wait for the other two pods to be up and running. Yeah, so the other two pods have been restarted. Now let's go back to the Acceldata page. So I'll go to register. In order to verify if our global storage setup is done, go back to register and click on data planes. And this is the data plane to which we configure the global storage setup. So in order to verify, click on this three dots and application config. So if you remember earlier, before we did this activity, it was pointing to local. Now since we have configured the global storage, this has changed to ADLS. So our global storage configuration using the service principal has been done. Now let's quickly look at how the global storage setup for um, ADLS can be done using the access key. So let me click on it. I'll choose this other data plane for this purpose. Let's click on configure data plane. So this is my namespace. Let me go back to my K9s namespace. So this is the Azure test NS. This is my namespace on which I'm going to show you the ADLS global storage setup using the access key. So again, all my pods are active, so I'll go to secrets. Again, the global storage, so let me click on edit, and this is the value. So I've copied this value. Now I'll open a new tab, paste this. Again, this is base 64 encoded value. We'll have to decode it before we can see the value. Since this is already configured one, I'll quickly run you through the changes that has to be done for ADLS using access keys. So the first step is same. We'll have to change the measure result FS type, that is ADLS. So the first step. So the second step, we'll have to add the container name and account name. So I'll show you the container name. So the container name here is ADLS global storage, and the account name ADSNS storage. So we have already added. And next, since we are going to use the storage key, we'll have to change the ADLS mode to storage key and add the ADLS storage key, access key. So we have added mode as storage key, and the access key has also has been added as well. And again, this is also important. So if you are going with gen 1, then you'll have to change it to gen 1. So now I'm showing gen 2, so will not change this. Now all of this configuration is done. So the next step will be, you'll have to encode this value. So you have to select it, do base 64 encode again, and go back to your K9s, change the secret global storage secret, just replace this base 64 encoded value, and you'll have to save the file. Once you save the file, you'll have to go to your pods and restart the analysis service, SQL service, and standalone service. It will take a while. Once the pods are again up and running, you are good to go back to the data plane configuration, register data plane, and this is the data plane. You can click on these three dots, application config, and you will be able to see the data plane setup here, the global storage for your data plane that is set up here. So thanks everyone.